Hello and welcome to week 3, part 2 of MAA. Today we're going to look at environmental management accounting, and as always this is hosted by Dr. Martin Roberts. Okay, environmental accounting, it has unfortunately come to the fore because we've had many a disaster that many companies need to be held accountable for, and we now have lots of environmentalists who are protesting and making sure that it comes to the forefront of everybody's mind that we not only use the planet but we look after her as well. Okay, you will have very famous people like Sir David Attenborough and Greta Thunberg who will campaign on behalf of making sure that we act responsibly as manufacturers. Okay, as it says, it's incredibly large topic, and the idea is that we in the new formats that are required by law these days for producing external reports, is not only do we report the numbers, but we also report the numbers from an environmental sense. Okay, so that what that does is that allows people internally to make decisions and also externally to influence our behaviours as a company. Okay, EMA is split into two. The first is that we record all the physical ingoings and outgoings, so how much water do we use, how much energy do we use, and how much waste is produced. But also, not only do we do that from a volume perspective, but we also do it from a cost perspective. So how much have we consumed value wise in terms of energy, and then therefore potentially how much savings have we done by recycling our water. Okay, so the three main reasons why we are involved in environmental accounting is because we're made aware. We have to make sure that we understand our carbon footprint and how much say greenhouse gas we're causing or using, and for example is that our reports are getting bigger. So if we take McDonald's for example, as you can see here is that large companies are taking it very, very seriously, and we must record our wastage, but we also must then use that information to drive initiatives to be greener. Okay, so alright, so there you go. That's silly things like that. So waterless urinals, it sounds silly, but there you go, look at that. It saved 200 million litres of water every year. So you can see it in volume. You will also, if you look carefully enough within the accounts and the reports, you will see also the monetary value. Okay, so what else do we need to think about? I said three things. Well, the second one is obviously, as we've seen at McDonald's, is that there are huge environmental costs. Okay, can amount to 20% of your total cost. And then finally, we have to do it. We have to comply to regulations. So our company's house reports now have to include any costs of non-compliance, such as this particular firm paid £85,000 in costs, but also had £1.2 million worth of assets seized. Okay, so you've got to be real careful that you make sure that you're up to date with your regulation, and you will get involved in this as the head of accounts, or even as an auditor. You will make sure that the company complies to these regulations. Okay, so the thing that you've really got to think about, especially when you read the textbook, is that there are 4 techniques that you can use for the identification and allocation of costs with regard to the environment, and they're the 4 that you can see here. And just so you know, is the the UNDS stands for United Nations Divisions for Sustainable Development. So they say use 4 techniques, and it's these 4 that you can see in front of you, and I'll go through them. Okay, So input and outflow analysis is, in essence, very simple. A bit like process costing is what goes in must come out. Okay, so if 100 kilograms have been utilized to make 80 grams worth of finished goods, then where's the other 20 gone? Okay, so what you've got to do is that you account for it in a physical and monetary sense. Okay, all right. Flow cost accounting is pretty similar, but what you do is you make sure that you look at your material flows in 3 categories: material, system, and cheating a little bit, delivery and disposal. Okay, so really what you're trying to do is isolate the costs of each of these 3 sections. So how much is about the material, how much is about the system, and how much is about it at the start and at the end of the process. Okay. Activity-based costing. So we use this technique to look at your costs from an environmental context. So when we go and do activity-based costing, which is coming up, this is a unique way of pooling your costs together, is to actually look at them collectively from an environmental perspective. Okay, and the final one, okay, is why I talked to you earlier about life cycle costing, is this is actually part of environmental accounting. Okay, so therefore when we cost a product, not only do we think about the cost at the start, but also at the disposal when we are thinking about pricing our products. And if we don't get it wrong, we could be hit with a large bill on disposal of our products at the end of their lives. So we must make sure that we've covered that in our original selling price. Okay, alright, so just to finish it off, is that there you go, is that not only do you need to put your costs into those 4 categories, but it also means that potentially you can put all your costs into all these different categories. So it just shows you how complicated it can get. I don't want you to learn this. This is just for a piece of information to show you that you can actually now carve out a career as an environmental accountant. Okay, so on that note, I will leave you and we will move on hopefully, and we'll go through to throughput accounting, and then we'll follow through to the answers for all of them in lecture 4.